Hi friends, hi, hello, how's it going today? Hopefully today finds you well. Today we're doing the next episode of my palette roulette series in which I come to you review a palette that I have in my collection that you might also have in your collection, and then we pull a new palette to talk about next week. I give you all my thoughts and opinions. I utilize the palette in and of itself for a full week, making sure that I use every single color and that I try it with and without primer so that I can give you a true review of the palette. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. I am a lover of all things colorful, high-end beauty and self-care. I am a wee bit of a makeup commentary channel. I like to talk about makeup, and as a district leader for Ulta, I get all kinds of education. I also like to give you the education on the products that I am getting education on, and I hope that you're in for it. I think that you'll find I'm kind of a kick in the pants to hang out with. I love talking about makeup, and if you also love talking about makeup, I hope that you'll want to subscribe before you go. With that being said, let's roll into this palette. Today we are reviewing the Coloured Raine Juicy Boost palette, and as you can see, I have the book version of this palette. They did come out with two different versions of this palette, one a flat lay and one this. I could only find one star rating on the internet for this palette, and it was the Coloured Raine star rating, which is 4.9, and there were only 32 reviews, and only one of those reviews was less than 5 stars. You know how I feel about that. I think that it's a little odd, in my opinion. This palette looks like this. This is the sleeve for it. So the palette looks very, very similar to the sleeve. It does have two different layers. The first layer being this layer and the second layer being this layer. It does have a nice mirror. It is a $52 eyeshadow palette. It does come with 0.81 ounces of product, which means each one of the 18 pans in this eyeshadow palette are 0.05 ounces of product, which is pretty typical. There are, like I said, 18 shades in here. 15 of those shades are mattes, and only 3 of those shades are shimmers, and those 3 shades are these ones here on the first layer. If you look at the flat lay version, this palette makes a whole lot more sense, in my opinion. I had to go back and look at the flat lay version many times to figure out like a color story. I think I did this palette a disservice by buying it in this format. I think that they did this palette a disservice by putting it in this format, honestly, because when I look at a palette, I look at it as is, right? The colors that lay on the screen. So not that I can't bounce back and forth between pages, I guess, of the book, but the fact that all 3 of the shimmers are in this one page, like I often forgot that the shimmers even existed, if I'm honest. And then when I looked at like partnering coloring together, I often just looked at these shadows here as partners and these shadows here as partners, instead of trying to mix and match and go back and forth between. And you know, I talk a lot about Natasha Denona palettes being like built so that you can work in that row of 5 or that column of 3, or you know, that quad of 4. Like, I don't work with my palettes in that way. I like to bounce around all over the place. I think I would have loved this palette a lot more if it had been a flat lay version. I should have purchased the flat lay. What I found about this packaging is if you are wanting to dive into this page as well as this page, like going back and forth with them is just kind of a pain in the butt. And one of the biggest reasons why, honestly, is because this magnetic closure is pretty stout. It's a dang good magnet, which I have to give them credit for. But it was a pain in the butt to try and like flip through the pages. I couldn't just flip through the pages. And I know that's like first world problems, it is what it is, but I do think I'd have more fun with this palette had I had the flat lay version. Now, speaking of the packaging, like, it is beautiful packaging. I love the fact that all the colors on this lend to what you see in the palette, but it's also really fun. It's very tactile, it's raised. There's little fruits on here, which is obviously what this is inspired by, is the fruit juices of the world, right? And with names like, you know, cranberry, vanilla, ginger bay, citrus, zinger, orange carrot, it's definitely a juice themed kind of palette, and it is called Juicy Boost. So there's that. When this launch first happened, there was like a water bottle that you could purchase with it, an umbrella that you could purchase with it. I dug it. The whole thing was just amazing. And I think that Coloured Raine really did a really great job with this launch, because there was just a plethora of things that you could purchase with it, and it was fun. It was a fun color story, right? I could see, if you look at the flat lay, you could see all the colors working together to create some really glorious eye looks. I don't think that I didn't create great eye looks. I got some really pretty eye looks out of this, but if I'm honest, this is only the third day I've worn my makeup since I pulled this palette. So therefore, I only have like 3 eye looks to show you. So it's got 18 shades, 15 of them are matte, 3 of them are considered dazzlers. They're just the shimmer formula. 5 shades are not intended for use on the eyes, so they're going to be apple strawberry. Then we have cranberry vanilla, which is this one here. Then we have sweet ruby. Then we have berry beet, which is this one. And then we have watermelon detox, this one. So I know that this seems to be a problem for a lot of people. It's not a deal breaker for me. I use them on my eyes anyways. What I can say is that I didn't really experience any kind of staining or any kind of irritation from those shades, which is a large reason why those pressed pigments are not meant for use around the eyes. They use dyes that can cause irritation in your eyes and staining on your eyes. That is what, you know, the FDA considers not okay for eye use. These are the pressed pigments in the book of shades that aren't boding well for eye usage, according to the FDA. This is a cruelty-free palette. All of Coloured Raine is, as far as I can tell, and it does have a 12-month shelf life on this palette. I quit for the longest time giving you shelf month because I have palettes in my collection that still function perfectly that I've had in my collection for 4 years. So it just depends on how you take care of your palettes, where you're storing them, and how you take care of them. They will last longer dependent on those things. The 3 shimmers in this palette, these 3 guys here, they're super creamy, but they're also really thick in texture. This one here was the worst shimmer I have ever had to try and work with in my life. It's very, like, I don't want to say goopy, but as you try and pick it up, I mean, even on your finger, it's just super flaky and it's awful. It goes on super uneven. It kind of moved all around the eye space versus staying where I put it. Even with a glitter glue, it flaked all over my face, which could have been problematic if I was like an amateur, like flaky shimmer user. I just really didn't like that one. It was very sheer upon first application, and as I tried to build it up, it just got chunkier and chunkier. It really exacerbated the texture on my eyelid. I felt like it made me look older. There's a beautiful eye look I put it into, but I ended up going over the top of it with more of the matte pigmentation because it just wasn't working for the eye look. It just would not stay put. And in that eye look, I did have a glitter glue down prior to utilizing the shadow, and it just didn't want to work. The blue one is beautiful. It is what is on the center part of my eye today in the halo space. And the gold one isn't bad. I'm not a fan of gold, but this one kind of leans a little bit green. I actually thought about putting it into my eye look today because of the green shirt that I'm wearing, and this does lend very green in tone. There's an eye look, I have it all over the lid. I think that you'll be able to see kind of the shifty greeniness. I think that those really create almost this like duo or multi-chrome kind of look to an eye. Like I said, I do have the blue one on my eye today, but it kind of has this like almost silver purple appearance to it when you get close to my eye and really look at it. It's just very, very strange. I feel like it's just got a little bit of duochrome nature to all three of those shimmers, which is nice. It lends to, you know, not only are they lending to the texture in the palette, but they're also lending to the color stories in the palette, and that makes those shimmers go with a wide variety of the shadows in the palette. With that said, I'm not a fan of these shimmers as much as I had hoped I would be. I looked at them in this palette and I'm like, oh, those are going to be beautiful. I hated that pink one. It was awful. And then the mattes in here, they're pretty good. They blend fairly well, especially for pressed pigments. I felt like they blended fairly well. In the close-up shot of this eye look, you'll see like out here, it's a little bit patchy. They do get a little bit patchy, especially those brighter shades. So like the blues and the lighter greens and the like bright watermelon shade here in the center of that neon red. I did try and fix this eye look by putting in that darker green on the outer edges, and it only blended in to a point before it also started like voiding some of the coloring underneath. This is not unheard of. These are things that I know to be true for many pressed pigments. It's just sad to me that Coloured Raine has this pressed pigment palette full of all these pressed pigments that could be really, really beautiful that just aren't. In addition to that, I felt like some of the lighter shades, so all the shades on this page that are matte, really created texture on my eyelids where I've not really had that happen before. Even with a all matte eye look, it made my eyelids look like 90 years old. And I feel like my eyelids don't normally look 90 years old. So it was a little weird for me because I've seen that happen with like textured shadows. I've seen that happen with shimmers. I am, you know, 44 years old, and these things happen with some shadows, but I've never really experienced that with mattes. And the ones that were very specifically causing those problems are this white, which is a phenomenal white, this green, which is a very pretty, like, I don't know, minty green, this yellow, and honestly, this blue here, which is in my eye look today. Like, I just felt like they were not friendly to aging skin, which is weird for mattes. Again, I've had that problem before with shimmers, but never with mattes. They are quite a bit powdery in the pan, but I didn't really notice any kind of fallout from the matte shades on my face in application or otherwise. I did with the shimmers for sure. They built on top of themselves really well, but they didn't build on top of each other very well. And the mattes and the shimmers in this palette did not get along whatsoever. Like, the edges of where the matte and the shimmer meet are almost voided in every eye look that I have, which I thought was very, very odd. In addition to that, some of these lighter shadows like created that like oxidation ring around the outside of the shadow. Like, as I'm like blending it, I can see, especially with which one was it? I think it was this one. As I was blending it into my eye look, like the outskirts of that shade got really like patinaed, almost like very like grungy yellow on the outside of that green shade. And I was like, what the F is going on with this shadow? I don't necessarily love this palette. And, you know, going back to what I said about the structure of the palette, I maybe would have had more fun had I had a flat lay. That's just speaking to the whole color story and being able to put together a different kind of eye look and like really looking at the colors as a whole to put together an eye look, not really speaking towards the performance of the shadows. I did not have fun with the eye looks that I created with this palette. And while I say that this is only my third eye look, this is probably the fifth that I attempted. The pink shimmer honestly destroyed the first eye look. I guess I should maybe bring you pictures of some of the atrocious ones, but I also don't hide the fact that this has got some patchiness to it, and from afar it looks really good. Up close, it's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. So I'm not super thrilled with this palette. I don't know. I mean, I think I'm gonna keep it in my collection for this white and for a couple of the other of these colors that are pretty unique to my collection, but otherwise I know it's not going to be a palette that I pull from very often. I might actually see if I can depot it, because I just know it's not going to be a palette that I pull from very often. So I'm going to show you guys some swatches and then we're going to pick a new one. All right, I thought I would go with the 3 shimmers first. These are the 3 shimmers. So the first one is this Blueberry Burst. This guy is a cool blue, green, gold, like metallic shadow. It is on my eye look today. It does say it's kind of got gold in it, and it does when you look at it, but on an eye look it looks very silver. The next one is this pink one, which is actually called Sweet Ruby, and it is a pink blue metallic. It is a really pretty color, but the worst shimmer I've ever had to deal with ever in my whole time on doing makeup. And then we have this one, which is the gold green, and this one is called Lemon Wheatgrass, and it is a bright green gold metallic, and it looks very, very gold in the screen, but it appears almost green on an eye look. All right, I'm just gonna do the rest of these mattes, and then I'm gonna flip over to this page and we'll do those. This one is called Coconut Water, and it is a matte white. You guys see that? It is a beautiful matte white. It is stunning, and it works really well in the brow bone inner corner. Works really well as a base. Like if you are one that needs to set your eye base, this would be a great one, especially in this palette. Then we have this one here, which is Cucumber Avocado. It is a matte. They list it as a matte chartreuse. I think it's more of like a matte mint, because that's really what it appears like in an eye look. Then we have Pink Grapefruit. I'm gonna double swatch that. Pink Grapefruit is a matte like bubblegum pink. Then we have Cranberry Vanilla. Again, gonna double swatch that, which is a matte deep pink. All right, then we have these 2 yellows here, which are Citrus Zinger, which is a matte like margarine yellow. And then we have Ginger Bay, which is a matte dark yellow. We have Mint Leaves, which is a matte like yellowish green. Then we have Energy Boost, which is a matte teal blue. This one is in my eye look today. It is a beautiful color. It just kind of creates texture on your eye look. Then we have this one, which is called Kale Yeah, and this is a matte deep green, like a matte like foresty green. It's a beautiful shade. It is also in my eye look today, and I found myself really pulling towards this shadow to deepen up any eye look, because this is the darkest shade in this palette. Then we have that one, which you see how wonderfully that's swatched, so we're gonna re-swatch it. That one is Berry Beet. That is a matte deep pinky red. I think it looks more like a fuchsia, if you ask me. Then we have this one, which is Watermelon Detox, and that one is a beautiful shadow on an eye look. It is like a matte, like neon red, what you think of when you think neon red. It just doesn't look much different from the Berry Beet one in front of it, or this one in back of it in an eye look. This one is called Apple Strawberry, and it's a matte red. And you guys, this is a matte red. This actually shows up red in an eye look, which astounds me. A lot of reds typically show up very pink in an eye look. I think that this one shows up very red, but if you look across the board, like it doesn't look much different from the Watermelon Detox right next to it. And Watermelon Detox right next to it doesn't look much different than Berry Beet right next to it. Watermelon Detox, as far as I'm concerned, was a shade that didn't need to be in this palette, because it looks like either one of those shades in an eye look. when they are in an eye look together, you can't really distinguish the difference between them all. So then we have the last row, which has this shade in it, which is called Turmeric Shot. It is a matte, like deep yellow orange tone. It is also in my eye look today towards my brow bone. Beautiful color. I really liked it actually for a little bit of a like inner corner kind of moment, or even a brow bone kind of moment, which I've got going on today. Just kind of buffed it in to make everything else, but it does tend to, because of the color of it, make everything kind of muddied. So this eye look towards the brow bone looks very army green instead of yellow. And then this shade here, which is called Orange Carrot, it is a matte bright orange. It does kind of remind me of a carrot. And then the last shade in the palette is this one, which is called Sweet Potato Mango, and it is a matte yellow brown, kind of reminds me of poop. I didn't like this one in an eye look very much. It would be a beautiful brown if it leaned a little more yellow or a little more brown, but because it leans the tonality that it does, it just makes everything in an eye look muddy. And that color is also in my eye look today. I did use it to try and blend out the green and blue underneath because, you know, they seem to go together quite well. In the palette, they look like they would go together. On my hand, they look like they would go together quite well, but they just got muddy, which is why I threw the yellow in, which made it muddier. So, like, color theory, I guess, I know, but I've never had such a problem mixing whatever the F I wanted to mix on my eyeballs and have it come out beautiful. But I think that you guys can see, like, just the swatching and moving of this hand to swatch this hand. Like, these shades at the top have lost a lot of their vibrancy, and that is, my hands are not primed, so obviously these shadows go on and stay on a lot better with a primer. I think that, however, the longevity of them was still only about 7 hours before I saw noticeable fading, and it was like to this extent. I just didn't have a whole lot of fun with this palette. Here are the shadows in that palette, and I think that if I can get up close enough, you will also see how some of those shades really just create, or they fall into your fine lines and wrinkles worse than I've ever seen any other eyeshadow do ever. I don't know. It was just very, very strange to me. I hope I can get close enough for you guys to see it. Maybe I'll take a picture and get a picture up in the screen of it, just so that you guys can see it, because on my hands, you can definitely see where every like hand line is, and the eyeshadow is just creating a bigger like spotlight on those lines. But you know, they start off very, very vibrant. They start off very, very beautiful, and then they just kind of lose themselves after a while. I hope also that you will be able to see just the flat out chunkiness of this one shade here, because it's awful. It was the most atrocious shadow to have to work with. So, oh, I forgot to take a picture before I started wiping these off. So if anything could happen while I'm filming today, it has. My battery died, and then my camera lost signal, and then my card got full. So, true tea, while we were out, I went ahead, and even though I started to wipe off the colors, the swatches on my hands, so I forgot to take a picture of how it was sinking into the lines on my hands to show you what it also does on the eyeballs. I went ahead and re-swatched some of the colors on my hand and took a picture of it. I also took a picture of all the glitter residue that was left on my hand after washing off those horrible Dazzler shadows in this palette. And yeah, I did all that. And then I also pulled the palette that I'll be using next week so that we don't have to like go searching for one. At the end of the day, this does have some really great colors in it, but the the shades are just really dry. And because they're really dry, and a lot of people are like, yeah, but they're pressed pigments, so they're going to be drier. You're right. You're absolutely right. Pressed pigments are going to be drier, but I have come across some amazing pressed pigment shadows that don't exacerbate the old in my eyes the way that these exacerbate the old in my eyes. I think I will keep a hold of this palette and maybe try to, you know, depot it for some of the shadows in here that are just truly unique. I would love to keep this red. It was a really great red in my collection. I don't think I have another red like it. I also really loved this white. I think I only have one other white shade that I absolutely love in the way that I loved this white, and that is the one in my ABH Alyssa Edwards palette. Amazing white. I wonder how this one stacks up to that white, and if I actually need to keep this palette for some of these more unique shadows. With that said, this palette will stay in my collection at least until I figure out, you know, maybe I'll do a swatch party and swatch some of those shades that I think I want to keep out of this palette with some other ones in my collection to see if they're anything alike. I also have a bunch of Glamlight palettes that have those really pigmented shades in it that I haven't even tried yet. So I need to get on the bandwagon of trying those. I just need a break from all the color this week. So and the disappointing color this week. So I'm going to move to a different kind of palette for this week. And with that said, the palette that I will be using this week and coming to you next week with a review of is this Be Perfect Manifest Dream Big palette. And this is a palette that I was so excited to purchase at the same time as I got the Carnival 3 palette from Stacey Marie. I really love that Carnival 3 palette. If you guys haven't seen my palette roulette on that one, I'll link it up in the cards for you. This one was brand new out when I purchased it, so I was super excited to bring it into my collection, and this is what it looks like. So it's got a little bit of, you know, those more like muted colorful tones in it, but it's also got a lot of grunge and a lot of like pops of bright colors in it. I really look at this and think fall, and here's the true tea. It's August. It's late August. Well, it's mid-August, but it's late August, and kids are starting school again. And so with school comes thoughts of fall, and I know that fall doesn't hit until September 21. I know that, but I love fall. So I'm gonna will it to be so, and and frankly, I'm tired of 116-degree weather, if I'm honest. So there's that. I'm gonna will fall to be so, and I'm gonna start using fall palettes. Starting this coming week, I will be using the Be Perfect Manifest Dream Big palette, which reminds me a lot of fall and grungy eye looks, and I'm here for it. And again, I get to spend some time at home this week, so that, you know, working from home, because I traveled the first week of the month and I'm traveling the last week of the month and kind of overspent my travel budget. So I am excited to be able to create some looks out of this, and this palette has some fun textures that I'm excited to dig my fingers into. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, I definitely hope you'll want to subscribe before you go. Hit that notification bell. It will notify you every single time I upload, and I am here every single Monday with one of these palette reviews. So this is episode 141. I have reviewed like 150 palettes because there were a couple of those episodes that I did 2 palettes at a time. And my gosh, you guys, there's a whole lot of content out there. If you're looking for a palette review, I probably have done it. So please go check out my palette roulette series. I do have it uploaded in a playlist for you, so it's nice and easy to find. I do hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that if you did, you're considering giving it a big thumbs up. It really does help our channels out here. And even if you didn't, thumbs it down. Let me know what I can do to improve. I would love to hear from you down in the comments section. I hope that 2021 is treating you all kindly. I hope that August is treating you all kindly. And I hope that you and yours are safe and well and out there just living life the best that you can. Staying healthy and, you know, trying to get along with the world that we live in right now as best as you can. I hope that you all are loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, friends.